Good afternoon, distinguished members of the Finance Committee. This has been enlightening, I will tell you, listening. My name is Amanda Klimak, and I own Largate Travel. I'm a co-owner at Largate Travel in Waterbury, Connecticut. I employ about 30 people in Waterbury, and I have about another 105 people that are independent contractors that work through my travel agency. This is Isaac, and he's from Travel Insured, which is in Glastonbury, and also employs about 100 people that service the travel industry community. I'm here to talk regarding the proposed tax on travel agency services, SB 877. We are a 50-year-old company. We've been in the travel business for a long time. We employ a lot of people, and our industry has been through a lot of changes. There are 256 travel agencies right now in the state of Connecticut, and it employs about almost 2,000 people in our state. We do pay income tax currently and all the revenue that we generate, and most of the taxes that our clients pay are paid with the suppliers, the cruise lines, the tour operators. So this tax actually has a huge impact on us, both financially as we are competing. Our clients come from all over the country, and they have a choice whether they do business with Largate Travel in Connecticut or some other company somewhere in the United States. So we have that as one of our disadvantages with this tax. The other thing is we've never actually charged sales tax in our company, which means that most of our companies at the travel agencies that exist currently don't have the accounting systems capable of actually applying a sales tax. So we would actually have the tax that we're having to deal with as either we are absorbing it or passing it along to our customers. But if we pass it along to our customers, I now have to invest in technology that's able to actually keep track of those taxes in order for me to pass it along to the state. So we have those two things that we're working with. For my company itself, I'm looking at an expense of over $50,000 a year in additional taxes that we would have to absorb as a company, which means about one salary for me for most of my travel advisors. But I want you to keep in mind that of the 256 travel agencies here in Connecticut, we have over 60% that have 10 employees or less, and over 60% have less than 5 employees, and over 87% have less than 10 employees. So we are small businesses. We are not huge conglomerates with this tax. So this could significantly and dramatically impact our companies. One of the things that we have is we do have independent contractors that work with us from around the country, and they have a choice whether they work with a company in Connecticut or they work with a company somewhere else in this country. And so I have a fear that this will impact us and possibly impact the people that do business with us. So thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Representative Davis.
Thank you. Here in
Hi.
the middle, thank you very much for coming here and testifying here today. With the way that you do business, do you take a percentage of the total cost of the trip? Do you charge a flat fee? And I ask that because it's, what would the sales tax be based off of for your travel agency services?
Yeah, so it depends on what kind of business we're doing. For our corporate customers, they pay per transaction. And for our leisure customers, it's usually based on the amount of work that the travel advisor will be doing in planning their trip.
And on your business model, do you do a lot of business with corporate entities now, or do you do a lot of business with individuals trying to book a trip to Disney for their family? I mean, what does it look like as an industry at this point?
I mean, for us personally, with my company, we're about 40% is corporate for us, a small percentage, most of it is leisure travel, where we're dealing with the individual customers.
So a corporate traveler traveling, it's not as much of a few dollars making a difference between taking that trip or not. But for a family that's looking to finally save up the money and go to Disney with their 2 or 3 kids, having $100 more or $200 more might make a significant difference to
Absolutely.
to whether or not they make that trip and do those things with their family. Correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Can I add something on that? So as
Could you just state your name for the record?
Yeah, sure. Isaac Simrat. I work at Travel Insured International, and we're based in Glastonbury, Connecticut. As a a corporation buying corporate travel, we also have to pay a travel agency a fee. And, you know, we make our decisions on the fees on very small you know, a dollar can make a difference. So if they have to charge the extra tax, we may move out of state to an agency out of state because we wouldn't have to pay that tax if they have to pass that along to us. So that concerns us as a business in the state and the fees that we get charged from the travel agency.
So as someone who works with corporate clients, it could make a big difference too then?
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Can you, just briefly, could you give us a kind of an idea what I know there's no average customer, but who's utilizing your services with an economic profile of somebody who's not on the corporate side, but particularly on the individual leisure traveler?
It really depends. I mean, it's families, it's retirees. You know, it just depends. But people taking leisure vacations are one of our you know, biggest customers. And again, it goes back to how do we process those fees? The sales tax is something that we really have no way of processing right now. So there's extra systems that we'll need to put in place in addition to passing it along.
Are there any other states that tax this service?
There's less than a handful. I don't know if it's 3 or 4 that currently do it, but it's very few states that tax it.
Got it. And I only ask about kind of, you know, what the average customer looks like, because it seems throughout the debate about a lot of these exemptions, there's this assumption that these services are only utilized by people with means, wealthy people, rich people, that kind of thing. And I'm
No,
trying to
yeah.
paint a picture for everybody that these exemptions perhaps will impact more
Sure.
people than just folks with means.
Well, in addition to doing business with vacations, we're also working with customers who are flying to other countries and flying home to visit relatives. So it goes across the gamut for what we do.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions? Representative Davis.
Thank you very much.
Second
And
time.
from the code that's referenced in the statute that's before us, I'm not sure if it would include it, but would, like, if you wanted to, instead of going to your office and booking that trip to visit family, or if someone passes away, I would imagine they don't want to be dealing with doing all of this. They might come to you and say, you know, get me out to California. My mother died. You know.
Correct.
If you were to go online and use one of those kinds of services, would they be taxed under
No.
this proposal? But your services would be as an in-state company.
Correct. So you could go to the airline directly and purchase your airline ticket and avoid paying our fee, which has lots of benefits to it. But if you wanted to avoid the sales tax, you certainly could do that. Or you could use an agency that's based in New York or any other state.
Yeah, like an online agency rather than using
Absolutely.
your Connecticut-based agency.
Yeah, and I would say 99% of our customers we've never met because they are located outside of our general vicinity.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Senator Summers, followed by Rob Burrell.
Good evening, and thank you all for your patience in staying for us. I am Valerie French. I'm the owner of French's Worldwide Travel in Newington, which is a family-owned and operated business for the last 34 years. And we currently employ 5 people. I also serve as the president of Connecticut's chapter of the American Society of Travel Advisors, which represents over 150 travel advisors in Connecticut. And I'm here to oppose the provision of the Senate Bill 877, which is currently written expands sales tax to travel arrangements and reservation services. So travel agents' income, of course, is already taxed at both the federal and state level. And this tax on travel agencies' reservation services would not necessarily put that burden on the traveling public, but really would shift that burden to Connecticut's small businesses. Because most of us currently are not set up to collect and remit sales tax, as we don't sell other taxable items. So the administrative costs involved in registering with the state, the software needed, the manpower needed to calculate, collect, remit the sales tax is a tremendous burden on an already spread thin small business owners. So for my small 5-person business, this tax burden would be equal to about a half-time salary. Connecticut would be joining only a handful of states that tax our segment, which also puts Connecticut travel advisors at a competitive disadvantage with travel advisors from different states, which we've heard for all these industries. But whereas most service industries compete against their local neighbors, Travel advisors mostly compete against companies outside of Connecticut. We compete with the large online travel agencies, with the airlines and cruise lines directly. And if Connecticut travel advisors were forced to pass on any additional taxes, why would any sensible consumer purchase travel products from a Connecticut travel advisor? Why wouldn't they just go online and book their vacation directly from the supplier or with an advisor outside of Connecticut? It could effectively put Connecticut advisors out of business. Seems to me that many of these new proposed taxes are being carried on the backs of Connecticut's small businesses. Adding these new small business taxes are expected to raise maybe a single million for each of the sectors in this state. And to me, this seems as though we're walking over the billions of dollars and some of the more politically controversial proposals that are out there to try to raise the revenues elsewhere and on the backs of small businesses. So again, please vote against SB 877 as currently written. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. French, for your testimony. I would just like to respond to your last point. While understandable given your profession and others like you, the fact of the matter is that when you have a tax base, in this case a sales tax, that is narrow, in which ours is because we exempt so many things. In fact, our sales tax could be at 4% or less if we didn't exempt everything. And so when you narrow the base, you raise the rate because you need revenue to run this state. And I guess that was for me. I can take a hint. However, what happens is you find people finding ways to get out from under the tax when you have to raise it as high as although our sales tax is one of those taxes that we're not leading the nation in or close to leading the nation. It's a good thing. But even at 6.35, people find ways around it. You get black market participation. Cigarettes is an example. Huge black market in cigarettes because we've taxed cigarettes so highly. And so the governor's proposal, whether we agree with it, adopt it, or not, the effort is to try to have a more balanced, the base of the sales tax being broader. I know you don't like hearing that, and others haven't either who are here, but that's the reasoning behind it, besides needing revenue. Thank you. Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.